Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Karishma Connect. On this episode, I have got Asif Mugloo, founder of Hekayati, which literally translates into My Stories, which is a storytelling platform, a personalized one at that, for children, wherein parents can go, ask their children to choose the story they love best, shape the character the way they want, and then have an entirely digitally printed book. They could order the book and they could have a physical copy as well. Asif tells me more about that process. He tells me about why it was so important and why we need to embrace diversity in storytelling as opposed to just the standard characters. Go check out the episode. I'm sure you're going to like it. It's a really interesting story. And until the next one, stay tuned. This is Karishma, and I'll be back yet again next week. Until then, tada. Thank you so much, Asif, for joining me on this episode of Karishma Connect. Can't wait to know more about what you do, how you do it, how you started all the way. Tell me about that journey so far.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Hekayati was born in 2020 in my head, 2021 for most people who know Hekayati. So during COVID time, it was because a lot of the time my child had started school. He was barely in like FS2, which is there's nothing really. They teach them how to draw lines, and then he had to sort of have a conversation with the parent, with the teacher, and on a laptop, which was very strange for a small child. And then he had to sit across on that laptop where he was barely interested in what the teacher was saying for about 3 hours a day. And I thought, this is not good. And he probably is thinking what's going on in my life. So at that time, because of COVID and all the screen time and kids couldn't go anywhere, I started investing a lot in books. So that's how the journey started, where I thought I could help him just with his imagination, the reading, the sort of immersive, not the digital experience, but the hard touch and feel, right? And that's how Hekayati was born, because what I got, particularly from the bookstores and online, it was more Western sort of driven stories, stories that were not relatable at all. They were more sort of stereotypical figures that were the main leads. And he, obviously, being a Kashmiri kid from India with a unique name, so he couldn't relate to these, Dave, John, Sarah characters, and they were typically blonde, brunette, beautiful features. And given that he's my child, he didn't have the best features. so, yeah. So no. But jokes aside, there was very little that I could find that was relatable to him. And I thought this is a big issue in general. So that's how I thought I should create something that is meaningful to the child, where he spends time imagining things, builds his imagination, thinks out of the box. And that's how my love for sort of doing personalized, localized books was born. And then I sort of explored what is available in the market. I found out there are a lot of companies that do that in the Western world, which is produce personalized storybooks, and that's how I started it in UAE.
And then tell me about Hekayati itself, starting it up. You already told me about the need factor, but how difficult or what were the challenges and opportunities along the way to actually get it all set up and running?
So first, I thought Hekayati as a concept would make sense to the audience that don't know what personalized books are, which is mostly the Arab world as well as the South Asian world. So I primarily, being based here in UAE, I thought it would make sense for us to do it first for the Arabic market and
Yeah.
then sort of go on into sort of other regions,
Yeah, because
right?
it's something that we've not. I mean, I heard for the first time when I heard your story. I had myself
Yeah.
never heard of something.
Yeah, so exactly that. So I started first with the Arabic sort of storytelling storybook company, which could be personalized. So the challenges were too many. Right at the start of, for example, developing stories. So I had to write a story, then translate it into Arabic. At that time, I had to find who are the best translators and what sort of Arabic would they use. Is it more academic? Is it more sort of what dialect? How do they write it? Is it child friendly? Then on top of it, once the story was done, the illustrators. Now, if you ask an illustrator to, you know, give them a page to illustrate and tell them, okay, there should be a house here and there should be sort of the garden should be here, but they will draw like a British cottage with the smoke coming out of the chimney, and it's completely unrelatable to our child in Middle East. So you also need to sort of give a brief or explain it to the illustrator what our houses look like, because most of the illustrators are cater to the Western publications. And then on top of it, then the licensing issue, where licensing or publications for kids is completely controlled here by the government. So I had to first prove that I have no hidden agenda or something, and I had to submit all the whatever I had drawn or illustrated or made for their permissions, and then I was granted a publishing license in Dubai, which is very difficult to get in the first place. And then I had to apply for a permission with the National Media Council, now Ministry of Media here. Then on top of it, like the ISBNs, etc. And then on top of it, we had to get a license for e-commerce. So endless, endless challenges. But we got there at the end.
Were you always in this profession, or is this like a
Uh, in my previous experience, I've worked at a non-profit called Abu Dhabi Music and Arts Foundation. So I sort of had a previous experience in arts and literature and kids and what kind of sort of soft skills they need. So that's how I had a little bit of experience on that side. But typically, no, I sort of was in charge of development for this nonprofit, and then again in charge of sort of sustainability strategy, etc. So not necessarily directly relevant to children's industry.
it's your passion that's brought you here?
Yeah, passion, and I think more to sort of as a parent,
Yeah.
I feel it's a responsibility that someone had to take.
I want to emphasize there and get explore that a little further about the modern day storytelling scene. You mentioned that there's a lot of influence from the West, and that's true.
Correct.
I mean, I've studied literature myself, and I've seen that. Um,
Hmm.
there's there are a lot of nuances that we won't even be aware of that would be subconsciously kind of getting ingrained into our brains when we are reading.
True.
How do you think that needs to change, and what are some of these elements that you have noticed as part of your journey that, in order to kind of evolve modern day storytelling and kind of change the narrative, what do you think needs to be done?
Modern day storytelling has to be quite relevant. It should include diversity, uh, because I think most of the children that are right now born, or countries who have the largest sort of children population are in Asia, right? And I think that needs to be included quite sort of heavily. There was a survey done I think, just recently in the UK, for example, where all the sort of literature for children in the UK was looked at, and you could only find 5% of the main protagonists of the books were shown as black or Asian. So 95% were typically stereotypical Caucasian, beautiful features, white skin, brunette, blondes. And that's what needs to change if they want to really attract the new sort of generation of readers in this space. So that has to be included.
Tell me, you are somebody who has done that through their book, through the books that you work with, right? What
Yeah.
kind of impact have you seen? Have you seen any specific impact or change that has happened with these books? Have you seen any sort of mindset change in the readers that you can share?
Absolutely, I've seen it firsthand. I mean, when parents here see children being represented and being shown as heroes, so someone like Abdulaziz, whose name is Abdulaziz, and he is dark skinned, curly hair, and he sees himself as the hero. The parents become so happy because they see their child in the story achieving things, being the main hero, and then they sort of come to us and they say, "This is brilliant, this is amazing," and you guys are doing a phenomenal job representing everybody, bringing bringing that inclusion. So 100%, there are that sort that are really celebrating who they are, what their names are, where they're coming from, being happy in their own skin. So 100% for sure.
And why Hekayati? Can you tell me the meaning itself?
So Hekayati, so it's Hekayati means in Arabic it means my stories.
Okay.
So it's directly saying it's my story. So yeah, in short, that's how I took that name to represent us in real terms in the Arabic world at least.
And what, according to you, is one of the most important elements of storytelling?
This is a very interesting question. What are the most important elements? Uh, the most important elements I feel are appealing to the child, making it relevant, making it relatable for the child, and telling stories that sort of the child that has a bit of an educational element in it, where he learns or he or she learns something from the story. That I think is really important, because if we give literature to kids that is completely unrelatable, it's as the same as, for example, in if you pick up any book, you go to Boris or Kinokuniya or whatever, pick a storybook. First of all, there's a very little shelf for Arabic books.
Mm.
There's a whole collection from Julia Donaldson to Ronald
Yes.
Dahl and other children's authors. But there's a tiny section. There are like 4 or 5 books, and they're basic. There's no quality to them. So that's one. Then when you open it, it talks about stories where the child, for example, is experiencing meadows, snow. No way. My child knows what's a desert, but he doesn't know what's a meadow. I literally have to explain it to him what a meadow is, or put it on YouTube. Like this is a meadow. This is snow, but he never know how snow feels. So unless and until the stories are relatable and he can sort of imagine it, he can experience being there, living it. That's super relevant to the child.
That's true. I was recently interviewing a translator on the show, and she was an Arabic translator who owns her own agency, Aurora Hikma, and she told me, she said, if I have to write a social media caption about how it's time to enjoy summer, and then if I have to tell it to somebody in Dubai that but we've just had the summer. They're
Yeah.
not going to be excited about it. So I can't translate the same thing and pick it up for this region. I need to adapt it. You need to kind of think there's so much beyond just what meets the eye. And truly enough, I mean, I remember back in the day because I grew up in the region myself, and you know,
Mm.
we would not have these books. I remember Arabic books or Arabic language books or Arabic into English books used to only be available at one of those odd book fairs, the Sharjah book fair that used to happen, and that's about it. Like you hardly even knew about be it Arabic authors or be it local authors, Asian authors. But now I think the conversation, thanks to platforms that we've had in the region, and thanks to people like yourself who are kind of empowering that generation, these conversations are coming to fore. But do you think that it's that simple to drive change, or will it take a couple of years before we actually see massive impact?
Uh, no, I think it is happening right now. There's a lot of stress, particularly in the GCC, about representation and about having our own publishers and celebrating their work. So this is happening a lot. The Sharjah Book Fair and other book fairs, a lot of Arabic publishers come from the Levant world, which is basically Lebanon, Syria, um, Jordan. And again, the physical appearances are different, unless sort of it's, I don't know, built on or told in a different way. So the difference is still in how children look in Levant to how children look in the GCC is quite different. For example, in Saudi, it's completely different to how people look in Levant. So unless we are celebrating it and giving chance or subsidies or giving them funding or something, it is going to make direct change, and we see that change happening with the new sort of awards, with the new sort of publishing that is coming from the region. 100% that is happening.
I also think there's so much of diversity involved within every culture by itself. I think that's what's unique to this part of the land, in terms of storytelling. Tell me, how has e-commerce played a role in all of this?
uh, E-commerce, from a generalization point of view, is doing really well. You can always purchase books on Amazon, Noon, but at the same time, there were huge e-commerce stores that closed down that celebrated Arabic literature, like Jamjoom. Or, you know, it just few of them just closed down because they were not making too many sales. Uh, so yeah, in a way, if you want to appeal to a sort of a larger audience, you have to be present in an e-commerce or on e-commerce platforms, but the most popular ones, of course. And we are trying to be there, but our problem is being personalized, where every book is personalized for an individual child. It's very difficult to be on an e-commerce platform, the popular ones like Noon or Amazon. So for us, it's our own e-commerce. We have our own website. The parents go there and personalize, and then they can check out really easily. So e-commerce, this is how we sell our books, primarily the e-commerce on our own website.
Tell me about the process, about how it starts, how the journey starts for anybody who's visiting Hekayati's website. What's the process like? Because it's personalized for every child. So what all do you
Correct. So the process is fairly easy. You go onto the website. We have about 14 stories for children. So these are from sustainability to football to space to celebrating diversity. It depends on what the child is interested in. And once they select the story, they put the child's name. They select an avatar that looks like the child, depending on the hair color, the skin color. And once they do that, then they put a nice message for the child, which comes in the sort of a dedication message. They can also put a picture of the child, which will be like a souvenir picture in the book. And then once they push preview, they can see the whole book being generated in real time. And once the book is generated in real time, they can actually read the whole book and see if the subject is relevant to the child. And once they're happy with all of it, they can order a paperback or a hardcover book, and it will be directly delivered to the doorstep.
Wow. I wish I was a child now.
Thank you.
Do you have any, I can't say but do you have any favorite stories online that you would recommend parents to explore?
All of Hekayati stories. Why not?
You will,
Please
maybe
go and
tell me
read
about the
it.
first one actually that you came up with.
The first one, actually, we started with two stories.
Okay.
So one was about sustainability, which was close to my heart, and the other one was space mission, which is basically because UAE at that time had a big space program,
Yeah.
and I thought we could tap into that hype, and sort of this would give us a bit more leverage, and people would know. And then generally, then we had a lot of sales on that particular book, particularly when the first astronaut, UAE astronaut, went to space.
Yes.
So yeah, so we started with two books: Space Mission, where the child goes to space and he sort of saves the Earth from a sort of asteroid that's coming to hit Earth. And the second one is about sustainability, where the child goes on an excursion and finds sort of a plastic and you know whatever they throw in the sea, and sort of he takes action by building a drone that monitors trash coming into the sea. So it was about STEM education, and the second one was about adventures in space. So those were the first two stories.
That's super interesting. And lastly, tell me, Asif, what's next for you? What are you planning to do beyond what you're doing already?
Um, so quite a few things. We're looking for more collaborations now. We've recently done a book with the Alain Football Club.
Mm,
We use their IP. The child plays for Alain Football Club, and he sort of discovers teamwork and collaboration, which he has not learned before.
mm,
And he's very sort of selfish when he plays sports. So these sort of collaborations with organizations, we're looking forward to it. We are speaking to a healthcare company that want to talk about um, um, mental aspect for kids. We're in touch with another big football club to do a storybook for them. And then we also want to take physical stories and gamify them a little bit as well, because we now think that there are two sets of audience: one who prefer physical books, touch and feel; the other ones feel no, the kids are going to be living in a changed world, so they should have digital screens and interactive things by which they will learn. So we want to tap into both of these audiences, although we didn't want to at the start, but I think it has become a necessity for us.
what do you think about AI in the whole scheme of things now?
I think it's quite brilliant, to be honest. It is amazing. Uh, a month last Ramadan, so it's going to be a year.
Mm,
We used Midjourney to
mm,
produce a book
mm,
where we used ChatGPT to
mm.
write a lot about different things. And with Midjourney, which was again AI generated images, we produced a storybook which we gave away as a free book
Okay.
for children during the month of Ramadan. So
Mm.
so we talked about 7 kids doing 7 good acts in Ramadan,
Okay.
and what they want to do and how are they doing it, how they want to plan it.
Mm.
And we did a planner for kids to do different good deeds during the month of Ramadan. So if used in such way, then I think it's brilliant, and I would rely a lot, being in this tech space, to produce content quickly, to produce content as you can define how the content should be. For example, it draw me a town center from like an Arabian city, and it will give you a relevant illustration. So 100% for me, I think it's a blessing. But at the same time, it could be that we stop to exist because parents could just use AI to produce different storybooks in real time, and that sort of takes us out of the out of the equation. So, but presently, I think it's brilliant if used in a really nice way.
Well, I think that dilemma continues, but more power
Yeah.
to you for sure. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been lovely getting to know more about the platform, and I look forward to many more amazing stories from your end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why not? Please, I look forward to now looking or hearing all these 94 episodes that you've produced,
Please
uh,
do.
and sort of putting them in my car and the commute and listening to different people. So, yeah, 100%. Thank you so much.